right, a very good evening to you. You're just in time for KUTV Primetime News on this 28th day of October 2022. Now it is a month that has been characterized by championing for breast cancer both in men and women, and we have stories for you regarding that lined up for you in a broadcast. But before we give you all the information we've prepared for you tonight, let's have the highlights. Nominated cabinet secretaries hand over their respective offices and vow to complete work started by their predecessors. Meru County Governor Kawira Mwangaza stares at possible impeachment on petitions of gross misconduct and abuse of office. Kenyans urged to register with NHIF for oncology package as the Ministry of Health launches an oncology center at the Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. And CBC task force to start public forums next Tuesday. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm in the company of SAMMY OKELLO and I go by the name DAPHNE ORINA. We're streaming live on YouTube at KUTV Kenya and on Facebook at KUTV Kenya Live. You can send us your feedback regarding the stories we have for you in the broadcast. Let's get started. Cabinet Secretaries Ababu Namwamba, Aisha Jumwa, Alice Wahome and Eliud Owalo are among cabinet secretaries who were handed over their offices today. As they begin their duties, the CSS have expressed their desire to continue with the work started by their predecessors and vowed to find and tackle various concerns falling within their respective ministries.
With less than 24 hours since they took their oath of office at State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto's members of cabinet trooped to their respective ministries for transition. ICT and Digital Economy CS Eliud Owalo was the first to take over at Tel Posta Towers in a handover ceremony with outgoing CS Joe Mosheru.
We are going to strengthen institutions that have hitherto been rather slow, while others have been clearly, of course, laid back under this ministry. The Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the Kenya News Agency, Telecom, and the Postal Corporation of Kenya are cases in point.
Gender and Public Service CS Aisha Jumwa was also handed over the reins of power by Professor Margaret Kobia to run the docket. Jumwa appreciating the work done by her predecessor so far, while promising to do even more for the benefit of Kenyans.
Allow me to appreciate the outgoing Cabinet Secretary for her strong leadership and hard working during her tenure in this ministry. I look forward to continue her legacy and draw upon her wisdom.
Keriako Tobiko handed over the Environment and Forestry docket to CS Soipan Tuya. Tuya said she is committed to working collaboratively with all departments in her ministry to ensure maximum service delivery. Amina Mohammed paved way for Sports and Youth Affairs Office Bearer Ababu Namwamba. The former CAS confessed that he was stepping into the shoes of a Kenyan giant and a heroine. He promised to contact FIFA to lift the ban on Kenya and also deal with the doping syndicate. Others include Water and Sanitation CS Alice Wahome, who also took the new challenge in stride from Cecily Karaoke at Maji House. Former Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen also arrived at Transcom House in Nairobi to take over the keys from outgoing CS James Macharia. Eugene Mayabi, KUTV.
Now, Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage Honorable Penina Malonza said the ministry will adopt new but tested strategies which will align to the government's manifestos to turn around the sector. She said that the addition of the Heritage Department under her ministry will help consolidate gains and other opportunities that the country is known for as far as heritage and cultural showcases were concerned. CS Malonza thanked Balala for steering the ministry and promised to hit the ground running in implementing the ministry's vision and strategies. Balala emphasized the sector's contribution to the GDP of the developing nation and thanked the private sector for its assistance throughout his time in the ministry.
We're going to relook at our manifesto as Kenya Kwanza, because every ministry had an highlighter on the direction that the President, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, wants us to drive this ministry. We tourists who want to go to the beaches, but we also have this new generation, the millennial generation, that wants experience, that wants adventure, that wants sport in terms of tourism, and we have to look upon their preferences. And therefore, I want to say that we'll be working together this journey.
Elsewhere, a Meru County resident has petitioned the County Assembly to institute impeachment proceedings against Governor Kawira Mwangaza. The petitioner Muthuranira Mutuma, a human rights defender, wants Governor Mwangaza impeached over gross misconduct and abuse of office on October 19 this year. Chaos erupted at the Meru County Assembly between the governor and members of County Assembly who boycotted her address.
Barely 3 months in office, Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza risks losing her seat should the County Assembly accept and pass a petition on her impeachment presented by Salesio Mutuma, a Meru resident. Mutuma has cited 11 grounds that warrant the impeachment of Governor Mwangaza, who is at loggerheads with the Assembly's ward representatives. The governor is accused of violating, infringing, and threatening the Constitution and all other relevant provisions of the law, hence the grounds of gross misconduct and abuse of office. The governor is being blamed of practicing favorism in making key appointments in the devolved unit. The petition states that the governor has employed her sister as a bodyguard and another as personal assistant, while the husband to her PA serves as the official driver of the governor. The activist now pleads with the County Assembly to consider his petition as urgent since it is of public interest. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC on October 23, 2022 put the governor on the spot over nepotism and conflict of interest. Once in receipt of the petition, the Assembly Speaker will have to establish if it has met the requisite threshold and later issue directions. Joseph Thuku, reporting for KUTV.
Also, President William Ruto today joined in the celebration of Taxpayers' Day at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi. The President directed the Kenya Revenue Authority to seal pilferage of revenues collected from excise stamps. Today's celebrations comes at a time of tremendous crisis in the country's economy. Different organizations and individuals were awarded for their remarkable performance in tax compliance.
The President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Ruto, today graced the annual Taxpayers' Day at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi. The event identifies and awards different corporate institutions and individuals with outstanding performance in remitting returns. The President said it is wiser to risk short-term comfort in place of sustainability in the long term.
We have already taken the direction of retiring expensive, unsustainable consumption subsidies in favor of investing in production, while cutting off the fat in the national budget to eliminate wasteful and irrational expenditure to produce savings which will finance urgent critical interventions.
In the past, revenue collection registered incredible growth as a result of effective national mobilization strategies, which appealed to the fundamental values and identity and employed citizen education, engagement and facilitation. The head of state expects Kenya Revenue Authority to employ the same to increase revenue collection in 5 years' time.
Our GDP has risen to Kenya shillings 12 trillion, yet KRA only raised about 14% of GDP in revenues last year. In the past, KRA was able to raise 18% of GDP. If we collect the same target today, then we would have raised an extra 400 billion shillings.
The Kenya Revenue Authority has been put to task to provide a safe, secure and conducive environment for enterprise growth and maturity.
We are committed to instituting comprehensive culture change at the Kenya Revenue Authority in order to make it much more supportive of taxpayers. To achieve this, it will be necessary to radically reform KRA and make it a people-friendly, customer-centric organization that facilitates taxpayer compliance as a core tax administration strategy.
In a bid to mobilize tax revenue and include every taxpayer in remitting taxes, the President committed to become KRA ambassadors to allow Kenyans in paying their taxes.
I pledge my total support for KRA and KRA's role and evolution towards optimal tax administration for our historic transformation era.
In his address, the President said their philosophy will operate in matters revenue mobilization, which will be hierarchical, meaning that wealth, consumption, income and trade will be taxed in that order. Joseph Thuku, KUTV.
Away from that, Health Permanent Secretary Susan Mochache today presided over the launch of a comprehensive breast cancer center at the Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. Ministry of Health has also partnered with the Swiss Embassy, National Health Insurance Fund and Roche Pharmaceutical Company to roll out an access program to the costly but much needed Herceptin cancer drug.
Though common in women, breast cancer also affects men, with estimates indicating that at least 3,500 Kenyan lives are lost annually to the disease. Even as the world marks the Cancer Awareness Month of October, only a few people are turning up for screening, which is meant to help in early detection and treatment of cancer. Breast cancer affects the nipples with symptoms such as lump or bloody discharge from the nipples. The launch of the Comprehensive Breast Cancer Center gives hope to patients who will get both diagnosis and treatment in a one-stop facility, the newest of 12 centers countrywide.
That you don't have to keep moving from one facility to another. You come to one place and you get all the services offered: diagnosis, mammography, radiography, whatever treatment you need, ultrasounds, everything is offered here.
Mary Mwangi and Lucy Njeri, who have survived the scourge, narrate a difficult and sometimes lonely journey, but which can be overcome.
I wish from diagnosis, where if I, for example, if I am a breast cancer, if I feel a lump and I come to a hospital, the NSF should start there.
After the cancer diagnosis and treatment, some of us lose part of our bodies. One thing that goes off is the hair due to chemotherapy. The next thing that happens, you lose a part of your body.
According to KU Hospital CEO Ahmed Dagane, early detection can almost guarantee full treatment. Their efforts in combating breast cancer, he says, are however slowed by under-resourcing.
We nonetheless continue to reach out to stakeholders and partners support to address key gaps in training of specialized services, including the breast radiologists, radiographers, breast surgeons, the pathologists, cytopathologists, counselors, oncoplastic surgeons, cancer registrars, palliative care physicians, as well as genetic counselors. The hospital also seeks support from our stakeholders and partners in the provision of critical equipment to supplement the ones that we currently have, which are already overstretched due to high demand.
High costs attached to treatment of cancer is another major hurdle.
Lakini accepting ilikuwa ya bei ya juu sana, sababu ilikuwa na cost 1.8 to 2 million kwa mgonjwa ili pewe hiyo dawa. Lakini hivi leo tunashukuru sana, maana sasa wamesema hiyo 18 sessions hatutalipa. Na kama tutalipa, wamesema pia imelaunchiwa katika hospitali zote za umma. Na tuna matumaini sana.
Roche is a leader in cancer research, and its innovative drugs for treating cancer patients are used all over the world. Herceptin has been used to treat more than 2 million breast cancer patients worldwide so far.
We offer cover on cancer treatment through the NHIF. And that is why when we talk about universal health coverage, the call is on every Kenyan to get covered by NHIF. Don't wait until the disease knocks at the door. When you've received the diagnosis, then you run to NHIF to get a cover, because unfortunately, NHIF won't cover you. You'll have to get 3 months before you get the benefits that you require.
In an attempt at reducing cost of cancer drugs, the Ministry of Health has partnered with NHIF and Swiss pharmaceutical company Roche to increase access to Herceptin, which is a critical drug in treatment of breast cancer. Dennis Omondi, KUTV.
Now, as the commemoration of the Cancer Awareness Month continues, hundreds of women in Murang'a County were today the beneficiaries of free cervical and breast cancer screening. Salome Kimani, a county nursing officer, said that the event held at Gikono Dispensary had a good attendance that surpassed their target of 200 women. The women from Gikono in Murang'a South were also given lessons on self-breast examination. This, together with early screening, can help detect and treat cancerous cells before graduating to later stages that may be difficult to treat. Breast cancer is reportedly becoming more prevalent among younger women and women experiencing delays in their menopause to about 55 years.
Hii magonjwa ya kansa, sasa tuseme ukienda kama KU wamejaa huko wenye wako na kansa, na sasa ikijulikana mapema unaweza saidika. Sasa ndio maana tumekuja pia sisi ndio tupimiwe.
We have told them that in case that they are diagnosed with breast cancer, this is what we normally do. We normally take them through either chemotherapy, radiotherapy. There are also some drugs that are given.
Well, even as we continue the awareness for the cancer, menace in the world, it is important to remember that men can also suffer from breast cancer. We take a break. We'll be back with more. Don't go too far.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Kuna different types of gardens. Ule ambaye ako na compound kadogo, ule ambaye ako kwa balcony, ule ambaye ako hata na ukuta, ama uko na mti kwa boma lako. Hiyo mti unaweza ukaweka mboga kando yake mpaka ikafuata mti mpaka juu, na ukaweza ukapata mboga zako za kutosha.
Leo tutakuwa tunafanya mapishi ya vyakula vya kipwani. Yaani tutakuwa tunaandaa biriani ya samaki. Ndio maana nikaja huku Bamburi kumsaka mtaalamu.
Biriani kuna aina mbili za kupika. Kuna hii ya mbalimbali, mchele mbali, rojo mbali. Kisha kuna biriani ambayo rojo la keti chini, mchele ukawa juu. Upishi wake kidogo watofautiana.
So now, our platform has been made in such a way that it's very, very simple to use. Our interface is very simple to use. If you need to make a call, it's just a simple call button and the call goes. If you need to receive a call, it's just a simple answer button and you're able to answer. So we've made the solution in such a way that it's easy enough for even myself to explain to my grandma back at home. So that is one of the things that we fully focus on. Ideally, one of the biggest reasons why we actually decided to build this in Africa is because of support services. So even before we let you start using the software, we have a short implementation period where we help you do the customizations.
Right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Let's carry on. The 42-member task force created by President William Ruto to review the new competency-based curriculum will start holding public participation forums on Tuesday next week. The committee, led by Professor Rafael Munavu, is expected to address controversies surrounding the implementation of CBC amid discord from parents and teachers.
Professor Rafael Munavu, the chairperson of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, says their engagement forums on the assessment of CBC will be held across all counties. The 2-hour meetings will start at 8 and conclude at 10 every morning between Tuesday next week and Friday, November 11. On November 1st, the team will be hosted in the counties of Kwale, Taita Taveta, Marsabit, Nyandarua, Turkana, Kericho, Busia, Migori, Mandera and Samburu. The committee will then tour a number of secondary schools in Mombasa, Makueni, Nyeri, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bungoma, Nyamira and Homa Bay counties on Thursday, November 3. The public participation forum activity will resume on November 4th in the counties of Isiolo, Wajir and Laikipia. The operation will continue in Kilifi, Kitui, Kirinyaga, Bomet, Trans Nzoia, Kakamega and Kisii counties on Monday, November 7, before the committee meets citizens of Meru, Garissa and Baringo counties on November 8. In Lamu, Embu, Murang'a, West Pokot, Narok, Nandi and Siaya counties, the committee will similarly engage important education stakeholders. On November 11th, Tana River, Machakos, Tharaka Nithi, Kiambu, Uasin Gishu, Kajiado, Vihiga, Kisumu, Nairobi and Nakuru counties will end the exercise. The task force created on 30th September will prescribe a suitable framework for the execution of CBC within a 6-month timeline, according to a Gazette notice issued by the President. However, the team will brief President Ruto on their progress every 2 months. The team includes world-renowned Kenyan instructor Peter Tabichi, Mutheu Kasanga and Professor Collins Odete, among others. For KUTV, I am Teresia Maluki.
That aside, the Kenya Wildlife Service has offered a clarification about a fire that reportedly broke out yesterday on Mount Longonot Park's southern slope, which some had mistaken for a volcanic eruption. Early this morning, a team of emergency responders sent to the area were able to put out the fire.
The Kenya Wildlife Service has refuted claims of a volcanic eruption on Mount Longonot yesterday evening. In a statement on Friday, the state corporation clarified media reports of an alleged eruption, saying the images of smoke were as a result of a fire outbreak on the southern side of Mount Longonot National Park, which has already been put out. Even though KWS did not immediately confirm the cause of the fire, it claims that the blaze had destroyed around 40 acres by the time it was doused on Friday morning. Mount Longonot is a dormant volcano and is believed to have last erupted in the 1860s. Fires in tourist destinations have been common in recent years, with hot weather and human activities being cited among the major causes of fires. In September 2021, a section of the mountain went up in flames. At the time, it was established that the fire was started by hikers who had visited the tourist site. Concerned Kenyans took to various social media spaces for updates and to engage in a discourse over the alleged eruption, which never was. KWS statement holds that the flames were coming from a fire that was close to the crater. They further assured Kenyans that the park is safe to visit. For KUTV, I am Susan Wayaki.
In other news, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua emphasized the Kenya Kwanza government's intention to remove barriers to effective trade. Gachagua made the sentiments during a convention with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers in the capital, Nairobi.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua today joined entrepreneurs in Nairobi, where he declared that the government was emphatic on surmounting trade challenges, particularly in the manufacturing sector, in the bid to ensure a quickening of the economy.
Less and less government in people's lives and more services to the people of Kenya. Must bring to an end bureaucracy and red tape in matters investment and entrepreneurship.
Apart from the impacts brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, an increase in the price of raw materials alongside a struggling shilling in the international market have made it rough in the sector that is also a major employer in the country.
That's why we are engaged in a very aggressive program on irrigation, and we are calling upon you people in the private sector to partner with us in government through our public-private partnership program to build dams, to do desalination. We are open, and you know this better than us. So we are welcoming you to join us. The era of where the government can do everything is gone.
During the convention with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, a call to invest in the agricultural sector was made as the drought situation in the country continues to strike to worrying levels.
Looks like there's something we have to do differently so that these areas get sustainable solutions and become more resilient. As we sit here today facing the worst drought, some of the relief food we are getting for our country is coming from deserts. Our asals are better than deserts.
Gachagua further called on the taxman, the Kenya Revenue Authority, to develop an inclusive framework to ensure that a partnership develops to see both the government and the taxpayer obtain a mutual benefit.
If you shut down an account for 6 months, somebody cannot do business. Where will you collect tax the following year for the benefit of the country? When you shut down a factory, those employees go home, they lose their jobs, they were paying payee. Where will you get money from? The issue of closing factories for taxpayers who are suffering is a thing of the past because it is foolish.
Contribution from the manufacturing sector to the GDP hit the 11% mark and are stagnating there, creating an impression of a ceiling that needs to be addressed to witness further growth.
We have told KRA to look after taxpayers the way you look after a good dairy cow to continue producing milk.
Emmanuel Kutosi, KUTV.
Away from that, national and county leaders in Nyandarua County have today flagged off a consignment of relief food meant to be distributed in various parts of the county. The leaders said they have disbursed 1,200 bags of rice and 480 bags of beans to the most affected sub-counties in the county. This comes at a time when the northern parts of the country is facing adverse drought and hunger despite the government's efforts in distributing relief food. Well, at that we take another break. We'll be back with more. Don't go too far.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design, with branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa. Our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Ukiwa na dukuduku la michezo, tunafungua sanduku la dukuduku kwa ufahamu zaidi. Kila danadana, mitimko, mifiatuko na harakati zote ugani, sisi ni wako mwandani. Kukurukakara zote nyanjani, haziwezi kuangaziwa zaidi ya micharazo michezoni. Mimi mwanaspoti wako matata Peter Pinches Mwaora, ndakuwa na jopo lenye maarifa sufufu, nikufahamishe na nikuburudishe wewe shabiki shakiki kwa uhakiki na kindakindaki.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now tonight we tell you about a humanitarian organization called Love Without Reason that has made it its business to restore smiles and beauty to patients with craniofacial deformities globally, in turn rescuing them from human trafficking.
They say beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, but it is a story rigged with pain for those born with facial deformities in the form of cleft lips and palates, for towards them, the beholder might have well become the killer.
Children born with craniofacial birth defects are not allowed to live. Many are killed at childbirth. If they are lucky to be born alive, they are thrown into the garbage. Some are thrown on railway tracks.
The beholder may have also become the forsaker, discriminator, and abuser.
Oh, she is now 3 years, 2 months. But I used to struggle because always, if I always walk through the road, even with my neighbors, they always ask me, what about this? What was this? They always ask me.
It is a horrible life. Most people are considered to be a curse. They're ostracized, they're humiliated, isolated. They're not allowed to go to schools. They're not allowed to get jobs. Many do not get married, and they end up lonely.
The trauma hitting hardest for those born with the craniofacial anomalies in developing countries where poverty and cultural beliefs make it even more difficult to fit in any niche of society, from childhood, school, work, and even marriage.
At school, other kids used to laugh at me to an extent that I decided not to go to school. And I went back home and I told my father that I no longer want to go back to school because other kids are laughing at me. And my father went to the school to see the headmaster so that he can beat or he can discipline other kids not to laugh at me, but nothing happened till this day. They were just laughing at me.
So as these things happen, what happens is the child is uneducated, does not have a job, cannot get married, okay, and a burden to the family. And what happens is the family sells these children. And these children are sold for bonded labor. Sometimes they're sold for beggary. They go out on the streets and beg for food. Many of these children are sold for their organs. There's an organ trafficking, organ harvesting industry that is going on. So what happens is they sell them for their hearts, their kidney, their lungs, different parts of their body, because their face is messed up, but the rest of the body is fine. They sell them for their organs.
As if that is not enough torment, the patients stand to lose more than just standard beauty, as Dr. Satish, a craniofacial surgeon, explains.
Palate should be corrected at the right age, because there is a more chances of babies developing a defective speech. Correcting the defective speech is much so difficult, but I can say it is almost 50 to 60%.
A child born with a cleft palate is a major problem in terms of feeding. Okay, when a child is fed milk, either breastfed or bottle fed, the milk sometimes will go through the other channels, could enter the lungs, it could cause pneumonia, it would come back through the nose, cause a lot of discomfort. These children will not be able to feed. So a lot of them end up malnourished. Okay, and because they end up malnourished, eventually some of them will die. So that is a significant problem. It's a vicious cycle, because they can't feed, they are malnourished, and because they're malnourished, they don't have enough weight, and because they don't have enough weight, they can't get the surgery done, and the cycle continues, you see.
But what in the world could be the cause of the craniofacial anomalies that have subjected so many people in the world to nothing but pain and stigma?
There are some other doctors that would say that these children are born because of herbal medication given or the wrong medication given. It could possibly be different things like that. I've even had doctors say that it could be because of maybe the chemicals mixed in the waters. So there are so many factors why these children are born like that. But basically in the womb, the face needs to be formed. It comes from two different angles and it forms. And the non-closure of the face at the end of that term is what causes the cleft.
Restoration of beauty, smiles, speech and confidence, among other things, to the patient is almost a lost cause, as corrective surgeries, which go up to 100 for complete restoration, could be unaffordable for people living below the poverty mark, and lack of well-trained craniofacial surgeons that could easily exacerbate the situation.
When the palate is fixed, if it is not done by a good surgeon, a reputed surgeon, somebody who understands what he or she is doing, then the child may never speak. So it has to be done very carefully. Palate surgeries are not easy. Most people don't do palate surgeries because, first of all, there is no market value for that, if you know what I mean. You have a child with a cleft lip and a cleft palate, you take before pictures, after pictures. There is, there's some publicity that can be done with it. But with the palate, nobody does that, so it becomes a major problem. A lot of children have cleft lips repaired, but not their palates. One is there are not enough qualified, really good surgeons who do the cleft palate thing. Second is most organizations don't care.
However, amid all that struggle to look wanted, to be able to speak, smile, or generally fit in society, beauty might have well found itself in the corridors of Love Without Reason, an organization which is neck-bent on making the world cleft-free through fixing the facial anomalies.
Whether they are male or female, it doesn't matter. Whether they are rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Whether it is,
how old they are, it does not matter. We just know that these people need the surgery and we are ready to do it for them.
The organization has so far conducted 400 plus cost-free surgeries in over 50 camps in India and Africa, and for those that have been fixed, the smile is worth showing.
Love without reason. I just want to thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for helping our son.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, love, without reason, for giving new life like others.
It's still a journey of bruises and burns for patients who have not yet met the restorer of their faces. But hope still abounds, as love without reason will not stop until all faces are fixed. DAPHNE ORINA for KUTV.
Well, earlier we had a discussion with the CEO and founder of Love Without Reason, Dr. Santosh Matthews, concerning craniofacial anomalies, and this is what transpired.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's special segment of health, where we are going to decipher craniofacial anomalies, and helping me to decipher that topic is Santosh Matthews, who's the CEO and founder of Love Without Reason, an organization which has come to help people with such deformities. Thank you very much, Santosh Matthews, for having us.
Thank you, Daphne.
Perhaps to start with you introducing yourself and tell our viewers who you are and what you do and the name of your organization.
Okay, so my name is Santosh Matthews. I'm the CEO, founder, and the president of Love Without Reason. So Love Without Reason is an organization that was established in the US in 2007. So we are in the fight against human trafficking and also do craniofacial surgeries. So that's how we began, and we started doing surgeries in India, in Zimbabwe, in Uganda, and now we're also in Kenya.
Okay, you mentioned craniofacial defects and surgeries. Perhaps if you could tell us what some of them are and what causes them.
So craniofacial surgeries is what we call anything neck and above. Okay, so these surgeries could happen for patients that have had trauma, like they get into an accident and then they can injure their faces and then they can get into trauma. Some of these surgeries are done for patients that are born with these deformities. It could be a cleft lip or a cleft palate. There are children with big heads, hydrocephalus, spina bifida. All those kind of cases also fit into the craniofacial surgery group. Okay, it can involve. It's mostly the skull and the bony structure also that is involved in those craniofacial surgeries. Okay, so it's a wide-ranging area, but Love Without Reason in Africa decided to bring it down to just focus on cleft lip and cleft palate. Okay, so a cleft lip is where a child or a person is born with an open lip. Okay, they have many words in different countries for it, but the official name is cleft lip. And then cleft palate is the opening in the roof of the mouth. Okay, and a cleft lip, there are several different types. There is a bilateral cleft lip, there is a unilateral cleft lip, it could be an incomplete cleft lip, okay, things like that. The same thing goes for the palate as well.
Love Without Reason, what was the inspiration, what was the mind behind coming up with this organization to help people with craniofacial deformities?
The motivation behind it was my son, Philip Matthews. My son was born with a lot of deformities. I was told, my wife and I, when we were pregnant with our son, we were told that he's going to be born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate, and that he didn't have a right eye, didn't have a right ear. We were told his jaw was not fully formed. We were told that he had many holes in his heart, that they couldn't count the number of holes. They also told us that he didn't have a stomach. And we were told that because he didn't have a stomach, he'll be born dead. And they also told us that my wife, she had a lot of amniotic fluid, excess amniotic fluids in her womb. And they said that if she carries the baby to full term, the baby will die and she will also die. But by the prayers of a lot of people, after a few weeks of in time of intense prayer, when we went back, they found the baby's stomach, and which was a huge miracle. I believe the Lord Jesus did it. And when the miracle happened, we went through the full pregnancy. My wife was safe. The child was born with a lot of deformities. He, just like the doctor said, he had a cleft lip and cleft palate, and there was no eye, there was no ear, one eye and one ear. But thank God he was born with a stomach, And so the day after he was born, they told us a part of his brain is missing, called the corpus callosum, which is the information highway between the right and the left brain. And so we were told that he'd be basically a vegetable for the rest of his life. So that's the way we started our journey with our son. And as we went through different stages, it's a very, very long story, but and everything, we have the medical records for all of that. But as we went through that process, we saw that on one side there was the supernatural work where he had many holes in his heart. None of the doctors could fix it. And then after a time of prayer, all the holes were closed by themselves. The part of his brain that was missing is still missing, but he was able to do everything that the doctors said that he could never do. He went from being mentally retarded to a perfectly normal child. Okay, so that was one part of his journey. The other part of his journey was that he started to have surgery after surgery to fix his lip, to fix his palate, to fix an eye. They put a prosthetic eye, a prosthetic ear, so then they had to fix his jaw, and they had to just kind of grow him in a certain way. And so that process taught us one beautiful thing, that is that, there are other children like Philip. And we were fortunate because, like I said, Philip was born in America, and there are certain things that they do for children that are born with deformities on compassionate grounds. So we were fortunate to get some benefits and some, support from the government, and we also were doing well. So our thing at that point was, let us do something to help other children. So that is how we started Love With Our Reason, to help another child that may need this help.
Medically, what are some of the forces that could lead to craniofacial deformities, just perhaps to mention some of them and how they come into being?
Okay. So in this area, they have different kinds of answers. You talk to a panel of doctors, they will all give you different answers, okay? So let me start with my son first. As far as my son is concerned, they did a genetic test on us, they did a DNA test on the parents, and they looked into our family genealogy and history. None of them had any facial deformity. So Philip was our first baby in the entire family history of both of myself and my wife to have had a problem like this. Okay, if you ask different doctors, some will say that it is because of lack of folic acid. Some will say it is because of lack of nutrition or malnourishment, because in poverty-stricken areas you will find many children born with clefts. But then again, in the urban areas, it is easy to identify a cleft child, and most parents that identify children with clefts will abort the babies. But there is no such so-called luxury in the rural areas, in the poverty-ridden areas. So you see a lot of children born with clefts in the poverty-ridden areas and less so in the urban areas. So now is it because of poverty or is it because of access to, advanced medical, issues? There are some other doctors that would say that these children are born because of herbal medication given or the wrong medication given. It could possibly be different things like that. I've even had doctors say that it could be because of maybe the chemicals mixed in the waters. So there are so many factors why these children are born like that. But basically in the womb, the face needs to be formed. It comes from two different angles when it forms. And the non-closure of the face at the end of that term is what causes the cleft. Okay? And why it happens, I don't know if there's a concrete answer. You can never accurately predict if a child will have a cleft or not have a cleft at conception. Okay. My advice is, however the child is born, the child is a gift from God. That child has a purpose. That child has a life. Let's make the best use of it.
What are some of the challenges that people with cleft lips and palates and the general, the craniofacial deformities, what do they undergo in society, and what have you done to help such people?
So there are, for a child from having a cleft lip, of course it's the looks, the mental trauma, the mental anguish. There is a lot of bullying going on that can lead to mental trauma and psychological issues. It's a huge problem that they will go through because of the cleft lip. Okay, the cleft palate is another huge area. Some moms will come back home and say, I don't want to look at that child. So that child grows up neglected. The child also grows up isolated and will not be allowed to go to school in many communities. The child cannot mingle socially with other people. So as these things happen, what happens is the child is uneducated, does not have a job, cannot get married, okay, and a burden to the family. And what happens is the family sells these children. And these children are sold for bonded labor. Sometimes they are sold for beggary. They go out on the streets and beg for food. Many of these children are sold for their organs. There's an organ trafficking, organ harvesting industry that is going on. So what happens is they sell them for their hearts, their kidney, their lungs, different parts of their body, because their face is messed up, but the rest of the body is fine. They sell them for their organs. So when we do the surgery, what happens is that child is at less risk for being sold into the organ harvesting or this kind of human trafficking rings. So as soon as the surgery is done, they turn from a curse to a celebrity, basically, from a curse to a blessing. So as soon as they go home, now they become a completely different person. And people all over now love this child. How did this happen? This is a miracle. Things start to change. And there is an opportunity for a new life. So that is what we do. That's what I feel is the most significant part of what Love Without Reason does.
What are the implications of untreated deformities, like for instance the cleft palates and cleft lips?
A child born with a cleft palate is a major problem in terms of feeding. Okay, when a child is fed milk, either breastfed or bottle fed, the milk sometimes will go through the other channels, could enter the lungs, it could cause pneumonia, it would come back through the nose, cause a lot of discomfort. These children will not be able to feed. So a lot of them end up malnourished. Okay, and because because they end up malnourished, eventually maybe some of them will die. So that is a significant problem. It's a vicious cycle because they can't feed, they are malnourished, and because they are malnourished, they don't have enough weight, and because they don't have enough weight, they can't get the surgery done, and the cycle continues, you see? So we have to figure out a way to help these children be able to feed. The second major issue with a child with a cleft palate is the speech part. Okay, if a surgery is not done within 1.5 to 2 years' time, the speech muscles that is in the palate will not develop. Okay, and of course there is an opening in the upper roof, and therefore the voice, the sounding board. I'm just using layman's terms because of the audience. The sounding board will not reflect the sound, and therefore the sound is not produced. It goes up through the nose, and there's a hissing sound that comes out. So when the palate is fixed, if it is not done by a good surgeon, a reputed surgeon, somebody who understands what he or she is doing, then the child may never speak. So it has to be done very carefully. Palate surgeries are not easy. Most people don't do palate surgeries because, first of all, there is no market value for that, if you know what I mean. You have a child with a cleft lip and a cleft palate, you take before pictures, after pictures. There's some publicity that can be done with it. But with the palate, nobody does that, so it becomes a major problem. A lot of children have cleft lips repaired, but not their palates. One is there are not enough qualified, really good surgeons who do the cleft palate thing. Second is most organizations don't care. But as far as we are concerned, with Love Without Reason, we focus a lot of functionality. Okay, it is important that these children have a voice. Their voices should be heard. So these are the two major issues that we have with a child with a cleft palate.
After undergoing surgery, of course, we expect post-surgical care. What exactly should one do after surgeries, and what are the consequences of not actually adhering to those measures?
See, after a surgery is done, it's extremely important that the palate is not messed with, like a child putting a finger in the mouth or puncturing the sutures. The other part is that the child should not have solid or semi-solid or even what you call that fibrous food that can get lodged in the stitches, that can cause infection and open up this thing. So a parent needs to be extremely careful after palate surgery. Okay, so when after the surgery is over, they're only supposed to be on a liquid diet for a certain amount of time till the stitches heal completely. Okay, most parents, they feel sad for their children because the children are crying, right, and they give them something, and then the sutures open up and they're like, oh, the doctors did wrong. No, it's not. It is a carelessness of the parents. They should never, after the palate surgery is done, they should keep the patient free from solid foods, semi-solid foods. Listen to the instructions of the surgeons. Okay, so that could cause it to open up also. So these are the issues that people have to be very careful about.
How many surgeries should they undergo to actually be completely healed?
We advise the parents that after 6 months you can do your lip surgery. Then they could go in for their palate surgery, but the palate surgery has to be we recommend ideally 1.5 years to 2 years. Okay. After that, we let the patients go through speech therapy. They'll have to go through speech therapy. They'll have to help the child, speak because their mouths are different from the normal mouths, you know. So they have to learn how to twist their tongue, they have to learn how to reproduce sounds, all of that. And then by 8-9 years old, they will start to understand, you know, maybe 5-6 years old, they will start to have to look into orthodontist. They'll have to go in because their teeth would have started to grow, and some tooth would have fallen off, some may still be there. So they'll have to start thinking about braces, maybe a little bit more older. Okay, and then there are cases where the bone in certain places would not have fused, so they'll have to go into a bone graft surgery where they would take bone marrow out and then they would put it in there so that they could fill the gaps. So there are several surgeries that can be done to help bring alignment to your face. It is not just a 1 or 2 surgery thing. It could end up being 8-9 surgeries. In my son's case, it was 25 surgeries.
What are some of the criteria for surgeries, and what's the way forward for those people who actually don't qualify for surgeries?
Safety being our first priority. We want to make sure that the child is of good age, good weight. We make sure that there are no infections. We make sure that their lab results and everything come out correctly. A syndromic child, you know, a child with different other anomalies, we try not to do them in camps, because a camp setting, you know, children, we have to go through these surgeries very quickly. We have a large number of children or adults, we also do adults. We have a large number of people, and we cannot, if it's a syndromic child, it will need a lot more time. So normally we recommend children that are born with different syndromes not to do their surgeries in a camp setting. Okay, they can go to an independent craniofacial surgeon or to an organization that handles those kind of surgeries in a special manner. For those that have not been approved by us because of some of these reasons, I'm not talking about medical reasons, I'm talking about weight, and I'm talking about, you know, other infections or something that are temporary. We always find other partners that are also doing surgeries here. Love Without Reason is not the only one doing surgeries in Kenya. There are other organizations, wonderful organizations.
Wind up, what would you tell us? What is the big dream for Love Without Reason? Do you aspire to do more of the cleft palates and lip surgeries, or do you anticipate to begin actually the general craniofacial surgeries? Just
before my son passed away in 2019, before Philip died in 2019, he told me something. He told me and my wife Susan, he told us one thing. He said, "Dad, I want to work until the world is cleft free. I want to work until there are no more sold." These were his statements to us. And that's a huge mandate if you think about it. It's not one country, it's not one specific location. It is the whole world. And we want to do what we can to make the world a cleft-free place.
Thank you very much for your time. We hope this grows to greater heights and keep on impacting people. It's been nice having you, Santosh.
Thank you, Daphne.
Let's now finish off with some sports news. The incoming Sports and Youth Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba has promised a spirited fight against doping cartels in the country. CS Namwamba said this during the official handover of the ministry from the outgoing CS Amina Mohammed at the Kenya National Library Services in Nairobi. He has also sent a stern warning to doping agents and cartels, while promising to work with the stakeholders to ensure tough measures are taken against those found guilty. He was accompanied by Principal Secretaries Joy Okudo of Sports and Josfata Mukobe of Culture. Kenya is currently among the first tier of nations with high doping cases. Well, that's where we leave it at for the KUTV Primetime Bulletin tonight. Thank you so much for keeping us company throughout the 1 hour of broadcast. For more sports, be sure to join Evan Solma tomorrow for the On the Spot show to get your daily sport. I've been in the company of Sammy Okello, and I go by the name DAPHNE ORINA. Have yourself a good night and a great weekend.